Before I begin, if you enjoy deep, real stories about power, loyalty, and quiet revenge, please subscribe to this channel. It genuinely helps, and I promise this story is worth staying for. My name is Daniel Cross, and for most of my adult life, I believed loyalty still mattered in business. I believed if you showed up early, stayed late, and carried the weight when things went wrong, someone would notice. That belief ended on a Tuesday morning in a glass tower downtown that I remember the exact moment it happened. Not because it was loud, but because it was quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence that tells you something permanent just took place. That I was standing in the main lobby of Redmont Solutions, holding a small gift bag in my left hand. Nothing fancy, just a leather notebook and a handwritten card that a welcome gesture. The security desk was buzzing earlier that morning. People whispering, half smiles, nervous energy hanging in the air. New CO days are always strange. Everyone pretends they're calm, but no one really is. That I'd been with Redmont for just over 18 years. Not because I got comfortable, but because I helped build things. That I wasn't flashy. I wasn't loud. That I was the guy clients asked for by name, because I fixed problems before they became disasters. That morning, I was scheduled to meet the new CEO right after his introduction speech. Quick handshake, friendly words, set the tone. That's how it was supposed to go. Instead, he ended my career in front of everyone. Daniel Cross, he said, his voice sharp and rehearsed. You're done here. Clear out. No explanation. No warning. Just like that. The marble floor echoed under my shoes as I stood there, frozen. Around us, at least 100 employees suddenly became very interested in their phones, their badges, anything but me. And one spoke. And one moved. That didn't argue. That I didn't raise my voice. Because when you've been in corporate America long enough, you learn something important. Public humiliation is intentional. That it's never about efficiency. It's about control. That I nodded once and turned to leave. What he didn't know, what no one in that lobby knew, was that my name wasn't just on the company directory. That IT was written somewhere else. Somewhere far more expensive. That I walked out through the revolving doors with my head up. The city didn't slow down for me. Taxis honked. People rushed past with coffee in their hands and deadlines on their minds. 18 years, gone in less than 5 minutes. I crossed the street toward the parking garage. My phone buzzed once. Then again. That I didn't look. Not yet. That I needed air. Space. Time to understand what just happened. Inside the garage, the sound of my footsteps bounced off concrete walls. I unlocked my car and sat there for a moment, hands resting on the steering wheel. Angered, panic. Just a strange cold clarity. That I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a thin folder. The kind most people overlook. Inside were notes, contracts, details I kept updated out of habit. Not paranoia. I didn't open it yet. Instead, I leaned back and stared at the ceiling because I knew something had shifted, and not in their favor. Flashback. 18 years earlier, same city, different building. That I walked into Redmont as a junior operations analyst. Cheap suit, too much confidence, not enough experience. But I listened. That's what separated me. When clients complained, I didn't defend the company. I asked questions. When deals went sideways, I didn't pass blame. I stayed late. When everyone else chased promotions, I chased trust. That's how I ended up managing accounts no one else could handle. That's how I became the quiet constant in a company addicted to change. And that's why, over time, certain contracts started listing something unusual. That a name, mine. Back in the garage, my phone buzzed again. This time, I looked at a message from Ethan Moore in legal. Dan, this doesn't feel right. Call me when you can. Then another, from a client. Then another. That I didn't reply. Not yet. I finally opened the folder on my lap. Page after page of agreements I'd negotiated or rewritten or salvaged. At the last second point, one of them sat right on top. The largest one, the one that took nearly 2 years to finalize, that I tapped it gently with my finger. And for the first time since that lobby moment, I smiled just a little. That afternoon passed quietly. Too quietly that I went home earlier than usual. Made lunch like a normal person. Sat at the kitchen table instead of answering emails. The IT felt wrong, like wearing someone else's life. Around late afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Daniel, a woman said, her voice tight. This is Rachel Donovan from North Shore Group. I just heard. Heard. The word carried weight. I'm no longer with Redmont, I said calmly. Silence on the other end. Then a slow exhale. You were listed as the primary contact on our agreement, she said. Does this affect everything? I closed my eyes. Here we go. It might, I said carefully, depending on how Redmont handles it. Another pause. Longer this time. We need to review something on our end, she said. I'll be in touch. The call ended. That I didn't move because I knew exactly what she was looking at. The same clause I was. That evening, the messages piled up. Former colleagues. Partners. People I hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone asking the same question in different ways. What happened and what happens next? I didn't answer. Not because I didn't care, but because part one of this story was never about revenge. It was about gravity. When you remove something load-bearing, you don't hear the collapse immediately. You feel it later. That night, I slept better than I expected. And the next morning, everything began to fall. The morning sunlight hit my kitchen through the half-closed blinds. I'd slept later than usual, but not enough to shake the lingering tension from yesterday. My phone had been buzzing nonstop since 7 a.m. By 7:30. I had 12 missed calls and 21 messages, all from people who had, until yesterday, been content to let the world run on autopilot. Now they were scrambling. That I sat down with a strong black coffee and slowly went through them. First, Ethan Moore, my contact in legal. Dan, you need to look at the key executive clause. The board is freaked out. Next, a text from Rachel Donovan at North Shore. Daniel, this is urgent. If Redmont doesn't comply, we will have no choice but to pause the contract. Pause the contract. Pause 2 years of negotiations. Pause millions of dollars in revenue. That I leaned back and let the coffee steam fog the edges of my vision. This was it. The dominoes were lined up. And I was the one holding the match. Why 8:15 Sophia, Redmont's new executive assistant, was at my door. Perfectly timed, perfectly dressed, perfectly professional. But I could tell from her fingers gripping the leather portfolio that she was anxious. Maybe more than I was. Daniel, she said before I fully opened the door. I know this is unusual, but this needs your attention immediately. I raised an eyebrow. Unusual? That's corporate code for. This is a disaster, and you're the only hope. That I let her in. She placed the portfolio on the counter like it was a bomb. I need you to understand, she continued. The key executive clause has been triggered. North Shore will pull the contract unless it's resolved within 48 hours. 48 hours, that's roughly 2 business days to salvage a multi-million-dollar deal that I'd spent 18 months securing. 2 days to undo a mistake someone else made out of arrogance. That I smiled faintly. Coldly. Calculated. This was exactly the kind of challenge I lived for. Sophia stepped back, watching me. Daniel, what are you thinking? She asked, voice low, almost a whisper. That I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I opened the folder and started flipping through the contract pages. Page after page. Notes, highlights, clauses, contingencies. All meticulously documented. The clause was there crystal clear, and Redmont had completely ignored it. They had fired me without realizing their own lifeline was written under my name. The T847 AM, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I answered without hesitation. Daniel, it's Noah Peterson, my former client from another project, now a major partner. I've been following this situation, he said. Redmont's in trouble if you don't intervene. We'll support you any way we can. I allowed myself a small smile. Noah understood. Some people did. Most end up by 10 a.m. My kitchen looked like a war room. Contracts, notes, texts, and emails scattered across the island. I wasn't panicking. I was strategizing. The first step was containment. Call all key people who could delay the fallout. Make them understand that I was the only one who could fix this mess. Next, leverage. If Redmont wanted the contract intact, they had to listen to me. Not their CEO, not their board. Me did I paused for a moment and looked at my reflection in the window. Daniel Cross. Middle-aged, tired eyes, but not beaten. This was the turning point. The day that loyalty and experience would prove more valuable than arrogance and ego. I picked up the phone again. One call at a time. By noon, the pressure escalated. Text from ex-colleagues. Daniel, I don't know how to help, but everyone's freaking out. I've never seen Brooks like this. He's losing it, one read. Clients are asking why you're gone. They want answers. Every message reaffirmed the same truth. I was the glue, the linchpin, the one person who could save the deal and the company. Around 1 p.m., Sophia reappeared. Daniel, he's here, she said softly to Mason Brooks, the man who humiliated me yesterday. Arrogance in human form. Now, suddenly, sweat glistening on his forehead, eyes darting like a cornered animal. I stayed seated, casually sipping my coffee. Morning, I said. No rise in my tone. No recognition of yesterday's humiliation that he swallowed hard. Tried to smile. Failed. Daniel, we need to talk, he said, voice trembling. That I leaned back. Waiting. Patient. Silent. Because the most dangerous moves are often invisible. By 2 p.m., negotiations began. Not in a boardroom, not under fluorescent lights, but right here in my house, in my kitchen. Contracts sprawled across the counter. 2 people sweating, 2 people calculating that I set my terms. Not revenge, not power, respect, recognition for the years of blood, sweat, and loyalty that he casually discarded. Every point I made was airtight, every contingency prepared, every threat silent, yet understood to be why 4 p.m. Brooks had no choice. He signed literally under my watch. Every clause revised to protect what I had built. Every loophole I could exploit closed. He left humiliated. I didn't gloat. I just exhaled. I essed the door, clicked behind him. I looked at Sophia. You can go, I said. She stared, awed, speechless. Just watch, I added softly, because part 2 of this story isn't about the fight yet. It's about dominoes. And I had lined them up quietly, perfectly. The first tiles were falling, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The morning was quiet, almost deceptively calm. But anyone paying attention could feel the tension building across the city. That I had returned to my office. Not Redmont's, not yet, but my temporary workspace with all my notes, contracts, and plans spread across the desk like a battlefield map. By 9 a.m., the first ripple hit. Calls from clients I'd nurtured for years. Daniel, what's happening? Are we still on track? Is Redmont stable? I didn't answer right away. I let them stew a little. Patience was part of the plan. Every call, every message was like a puzzle piece falling into place. The wrong CEO had tried to erase me, but in doing so, he revealed his own blind spots. At T10 a.m., a text buzzed in from Noah Peterson. Ready when you are. North Shore is asking for a meeting. They know Brooks mishandled the clause. They're nervous. I smiled. North Shore didn't just trust contracts, they trusted people. And I was the one they trusted. By 11 a.m., I had arranged a virtual meeting with their legal and executive teams. Screen by screen, faces popped up: concern, curiosity, mild panic. "Morning, everyone," I said calmly. "I think you already know why I'm here." I outlined the situation, step by step, clause by clause. Every misstep Brooks had made. By the end, the group nodded. They weren't just impressed, they were relieved. And in that relief was leverage I hadn't even needed to press. Meanwhile, at Redmont, chaos quietly bloomed. Mason Brooks had called an emergency board meeting, hoping to patch the damage. But board members had already received texts, emails, and direct calls from clients questioning the company's stability. Every question they asked Brooks was a mirror reflecting his mistake. Meanwhile, I wasn't there. I was outside the chaos, constructing a map of influence, one that didn't rely on titles, budgets, or office politics. It relied on trust, relationships, years of consistency. By 1 p.m., the domino effect began. One major client paused negotiations. Another sent their legal team for clarification. Vendors asked for immediate confirmation of ongoing agreements. All eyes were now on Daniel Cross, the man Brooks thought he discarded. And yet, he couldn't reach me without my cooperation. Late afternoon, Sophia appeared again. She'd been in constant contact with Redmont's HR, board, and legal teams. "Daniel, the CEO's losing it," she whispered. I didn't need details. I could sense it. He'd finally realized the consequences of his arrogance. That I glanced at my watch. Time moved differently now. Every minute added pressure to a system Brooks had mismanaged. That I decided it was time for a controlled escalation. I picked up the phone and called a few trusted former colleagues, people who had once doubted Brooks's leadership. "I need you to prepare for contingency updates," I said. "Don't alert him. Let him unravel himself." The dominoes were falling, and the man at the top didn't even know which pieces would hit him first. By 5 p.m., I had orchestrated a subtle coup. No violence, no illegal moves, just the quiet power of knowledge and timing. Emails sent. Contracts verified. Client reassured. Board members aligned at T. Redmont. Brooks' office phone rang endlessly. Every call an echo of the mismanagement that had begun the morning before. Every email a reminder that contracts weren't just paper. They were lifelines, and he had severed one without realizing it. I leaned back in my chair. Not smug, not vengeful, just satisfied. Because in corporate warfare, sometimes the best weapon isn't fire, it's patience. Night fell, but the city didn't stop. I walked onto my apartment balcony. Manhattan stretched endlessly below, lights, cars, distant sirens. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Calm control. The game had changed, and I was now 3 steps ahead. That night, at around 10 p.m., my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I answered. "Daniel," a familiar voice said. "Isabella Garcia from North Shore. I just wanted to confirm we're moving forward, and we'll need your guidance on every step." A small smirk formed. She didn't just need me, she was counting on me. Exactly where I wanted them. I closed my eyes. Tomorrow, the final domino would fall. Brooks would face the consequences of his arrogance. Redmont would see who truly held the company together, and I would reclaim my place, not out of revenge, but to restore the balance that had been broken. Because in business, sometimes the smartest move is to let stupidity implode on its own. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, but Manhattan was already awake. I was in my apartment, coffee in hand, reviewing the final notes one last time. Every call I had made yesterday, every email, every meeting had been calculated. The board, the clients, and even some of Brooks' own people now understood something he had refused to see. The foundation he tried to erase was built on me. I looked out over the city, the quiet hum of traffic below. It was almost poetic. The world kept moving, indifferent to human arrogance and corporate games. WY9 AM. I was back at Redmont. This time, the lobby didn't feel hostile. It felt neutral, clean, polished. Ready that I walked through the revolving doors slowly, letting the familiar sound of my shoes on marble remind me I was home. Not just physically, but strategically. Sophia met me at the front desk. "Daniel, everyone's waiting," she whispered. "Board members, clients, even a few staff who had watched the chaos unfold." Brooks, of course, was already there, sweat on his brow, eyes darting. The man who had humiliated me yesterday, now cornered by his own misjudgment. The boardroom doors opened. I stepped inside. Brooks rose, attempting authority, but it faltered. I didn't greet him. I didn't acknowledge the past humiliation. I let the room speak for itself. North Shore executives were on a conference call, eyes on me. Every clause, every contract, every contingency I had prepared was on the table. I started calmly. "Good morning, everyone. Let's review the situation." Step by step, I outlined Brooks' oversight. Step by step, I explained the implications. Step by step, I showed how the key executive clause protected the company and the clients. By the end, the room was quiet. Brooks stammered, tried to explain, tried to regain control. But it was too late. By 11:30 a.m., the board had made their decision. Brooks was removed from active control, pending a full review of his actions. The contracts, once at risk, were secured, and my position confirmed, elevated, recognized that I wasn't just reinstated. I was given full authority to oversee client relations and strategic partnerships. That IT was the vindication I had prepared for, not out of vengeance, but out of necessity. Because some mistakes aren't recoverable without someone willing to act decisively. Early afternoon, I walked the halls of Redmont. This time, the employees weren't watching me with fear or doubt. They were watching with respect. Whispers of relief, of loyalty remembered, filled the spaces that had been heavy with tension the day before. Even Brooks' team, scattered and panicked, looked at me differently. No words needed. The balance had shifted. The foundation held, and the house of cards they tried to build had collapsed under its own arrogance. Weeks passed, and the fallout continued. Brooks resigned quietly, avoiding the media frenzy he had feared. Sullivan Associates, the competitor lurking for years, realized they had been blindsided. Contracts and partnerships once at risk were now stronger than ever. I spent my first quiet evening back in my office, looking out over the city skyline. The warm wood desks, the familiar hum of people working late, the subtle buzz of ambition. All of it felt right again. I poured myself a coffee, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to fight to prove my worth. A colleague came by, hesitant. "Daniel, you handled everything perfectly. No one could have done it better." I smiled, a real one this time. "Sometimes," I said, "the past isn't something to throw away. It's the foundation everything else is built on." And in that moment, I realized something. Revenge wasn't necessary. Control wasn't earned through chaos. It was earned through patience, knowledge, and the quiet certainty that comes from doing the work that others refuse to see. Months later, I stood again in the same lobby where it all began. This time, I wasn't carrying flowers. I wasn't pretending. I was there to welcome new partners, secure new deals, and build the future on the past that had nearly been erased. Redmont was stronger. The foundation held. And I, Daniel Cross, had proven that experience, loyalty, and foresight were worth more than arrogance, speed, or disruption. The city below moved on, indifferent. But inside those glass walls, justice, in its quietest and most powerful form, had been served. Sometimes the best victory isn't loud. It's the one that lets your work speak for itself. And that is exactly what I did.